Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Oil and Gas Rundown here at King Operating. We are super thankful that you're joining us today. My name is Rachel Griffith, and I am a Senior Vice President here at King Operating. And of course, we come to you weekly with these lives. We love to get your questions, so feel free today to enter those below. Anything that you want to ask, we would love to be able to provide those answers to you, specifically regarding oil and gas. And I have my three gentlemen with me today. Of course, Jay Young, our CEO and founder here at King Operating. And we've got Kelly Duncan and we've got Mark Ayers with us today. So these are our executive team, our operations team. And of course, we like to give you some practical understanding about the oil and gas world as it, besides just what you might be seeing on Landman, we want to give you some factual information. But I'm going to start first with Jay Young, and we're going to get a little bit of the news and start with you. Jay, how's it going over there?
Hey, it's doing good. You heard a good. You hit a good deal. I mean, Landman is going to come out pretty soon. The second season of Landman, and hopefully everybody has watched Landman. It's a great show. It's kind of where I grew up, and Kelly Duncan grew up there. That kind of in Mark. I mean, the guys in the oil and gas patch. That's where we grew up. That's in our blood, and it's. I mean, not all the drama, not the Bikini Brew thing, the coffee shop that is in Midland or Odessa. We didn't have one of those growing up, but just all the different, the way of the oil and gas industry and what's going on in the oil and gas industry and what's been going on there for years and years. It's a great sample of what it is. So Billy Bob Thornton is incredible, and we did the I think it was 10 true or false questions about Landman. Is this true or is this true? We'll do the same thing this year. Matter of fact, we may do it just after every episode. We'll do a true or false because people want to know. I mean, they're like, is this really true? I mean, do people really land airplanes on private roads with huge amounts of cocaine? I mean, I'm sure they do, but I haven't heard of them. But anyway, Rachel,
I
we're
think
doing great.
I think that would be really fun, actually. There's a lot of, I know oil and gas has a lot of mysticism, a lot of, different ideas surrounding it, a lot of truth, a lot of falsities as well. It's very romantic in that. I feel like oil and gas is very romantic. It's a lot of charged emotions, a lot of intense feelings involving oil and gas, from people who like it and don't.
Yeah. It's an incredible, extraordinary business, and it's like the H.L. Hunt family that started J.R. Ewing and the show Dallas back years and years ago. There is so much money in oil and gas, but you have to be with the right operator. You have to be with the right assets. You have to structure your programs in the right way, and you can make a tremendous amount of money, and that's what we're heading for here at King Operating. But this is not a commercial for King Operating, Rachel. This is about the oil and gas business. I mean, I heard that all we need in the infrastructure of drilling for oil and gas is like $18.5 trillion is all we need to. That's by 2030. That's capital that's needed for the demand for oil. We need a tremendous amount of oil in the United States. We have a demand. We have an addiction. George Bush called it an addiction in his 2006 State of the Union address. We have an addiction to oil. We love to drive. We love microphones. We love plastics, makeup. There's all different types of products that are made out of oil, and it's needed, and it's going to be the demand is not going away anytime soon. We don't feel like there's any time soon there's going to be peak demand, which when do you need oil and the demand continues to go up, and when's it going to start going down? We don't feel like that's going to happen. I don't feel like it's going to happen in my lifetime. I feel like the peak for demand for oil is going to continue to go up, and so there is a tremendous amount of money that's needed, and right now we're just not spending it. When prices are going down like they are right now, people just quit spending money in the oil patch, which is kind of crazy. I know. Hey, buy low, sell high. We're saving millions of dollars on some of our wells that we have out right now. Why? Because there's not as many people drilling, and when you have less people drilling, that the prices are coming down. So yes, we are seeing less people drill. When the supply starts drying up in the next 6 months, a year, those prices will go up, which will be great for us since we already have the wells online. So, yeah, we're seeing an extraordinary amount of influx of people just saying, "Wow, let's put money to work now. Now's the time to drill for oil and gas."
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Jay, when I was doing some of my own research and just looking into things, it said that the average U.S. American comes in contact with 6,000 petroleum items every day.
Yeah.
6,000 a day. And, I don't know very many people who want to give up their lifestyle or give up I'm
Yeah.
not giving up my cosmetics. Not
Yeah.
as long as I'm doing these Zooms. That's what I'm saying.
That's true. It's like Colorado. Colorado wants you to come up there and they want you to drive up there in your cars to ski, but they don't. They're as tough on regulations as we've ever seen them before. So that's a hey,
yeah.
we got to get up. You got to get up to Colorado somehow, and you're not going to walk up there. It's a long way, and it's kind of hilly.
Yeah, no, we definitely like our lifestyle in the US, and I'm super thankful. That makes me thankful for oil and gas. I mean, all of us, our lives are touched every single day by the amazing blessing of the oil and gas industry. So I'm very proud to be a part of it. And I could go on and on about that, but I'm going to ask you a question, Jake. So I want to talk about the US and India and just some interesting things happening there. There's talk of a trade deal getting close between India and the US. And, what do you see if India agrees to buy less oil from Russia as a part of that trade deal? Could that help the U.S. energy production?
Oh, yeah. That's the one thing about oil and gas prices. And I'm a fourth generation guy. I've been around this industry all my life. I've never done anything else except for a few years after college. I went into the stock business, but I was following oil and gas companies. So I've really been in the oil and gas business my entire career. I've seen the price of oil go up and down. You never know. When people are saying, it's going down, it's going down, it's going down. And that's when it's going to go the other way, number one. Number two is India buys less oil from Russia. What's going to happen is the price will go to 80, 90 bucks overnight, literally. It'll go up. And why? Because, I was talking to a radio station today in Wisconsin, and they were saying, why does this affect prices around the globe when something happens? And I said, well, it's like you getting oil out of Canada. The more you get oil out of Canada, and if there's a refinery right there that's being affected, which is what's happening up in Wisconsin right now, then you will have a disruption. Gas prices are up 40, 50 cents in Wisconsin the last, this week, all because of some type of disruption. And we can see the same thing in a short amount of time with that same with something going on there. And if something does happen, then we will see prices, move up. And so there's all the geopolitical. You never know what's going to happen. If anybody ever says, for sure the price is going to go up or down, they don't know. There's so many different factors. But I do know one thing. We were going to have a lot less oil on the market. The United States is going to produce a lot less oil in the market in 2026. Now, that's a fact. And why? Because we have 44 less rigs drilling for oil and gas in the last 2 years. A lot of the influx of production we're having right now is because there is a lot of people, there are a lot of wells that are coming on now because they were drilled 6 months ago, a year ago. And when all of that goes off and no new wells are being drilled and a lot of wells that are already on decline rapidly, 30-40%. You can ask Kelly more about that question than me. What's a normal Wolfcamp well decline, or how much production does a Wolfcamp? It may start out 1,000 barrels a day, and then it'll go to, it's down 30, 40, 50% the first year. Like I said, that's a Kelly question, but just saying that we're going to have a lot less oil in the markets in 2026, and when we do, you're going to see prices go up.
All right. Jay, what else do you see in the news? Anything interesting you want to mention before I go on to the practicalities? What else? You always watch a lot of news and sports. People don't know this about you.
Yeah.
News and sports.
Well, I love to read. It's my goal every morning, is to get up and read every morning. And if you read 5 pages a day, in the New Testament. You can read the New Testament in 3 months. I'm trying that. I'm doing my best at that. But also, I like to read. I like to read the Oil and Gas Digest, the Oil and Gas News, any type of oil and gas news. But then also the Dallas Morning News and the Wall Street Journal. So I like to read every morning before things start happening. Before I come in the office and everybody kind of wants to talk to you or kind of distracts you. So I like to do that before. It doesn't always happen. I may have, and I still get the old newspaper. So I've
What's
got like
that?
I know.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Marcus Spears' daughter. One day I was in the gym and Marcus Spears' daughter and my daughter played volleyball together back a few years ago, and I was there we're there before the game started, practice and everything. Well, Marcus has Kari Makaria that plays volleyball at University of Texas has a son that's like 6'8" or 6'9". He's still in high school, and then their youngest is, I can't think of what her name is right now. I'm sorry, Marcus. Aisha is his wife. Marcus Jr. It's just slipped my mind. But anyway, I was there reading the newspaper one day, and she looked at me, and then she looked at that paper, and she goes, "You can read that online, don't you?" I mean, she's like 8 years old or something. Now, that does come online, and I'm like, I know, but it just feels so good to read that
Yeah,
newspaper. So anyway,
absolutely.
but anyway, I still do. I read a lot of things online, but then there's some things I like to put my hand on, and I may not get to it until tonight, but
Anything
I'd like to
standing
keep
out to
informed.
you? Anything in there
You know,
interesting? Can you
there's
for me?
really not a lot of big acquisitions right now. The markets are kind of stable. There was a couple of deals, Eagleford, looking around right now, but we're looking at some assets in the mid continent area, which I love that area. We looked at a couple of Eagleford deals, some other more AFEs, but there is some. I really believe that the bigger boys, there was the big acquisitions the last couple of years, like $300 billion worth, the last couple of years, and that's kind of sitting on the sidelines unless Mewborn gets bought anytime soon. Other than that, there's really not a lot of big oil and gas news besides natural gas prices are going to continue to go up. They're at $3.40. They'll continue to go up. We're going to need a lot more natural gas. We'll need a lot more natural gas in the United States. Talking about demand and talking about peak demand for natural gas. We're selling a lot more natural gas to Mexico. We're LNGing it, meaning that we're putting it on ships and shipping it across seas. And data centers here in the United States, they need a lot more natural gas. And so data centers, the new AI stuff, all of that needs more natural gas. So we really feel confident that natural gas, and I put on social media the other day that on X and LinkedIn, what do you think natural gas prices are going to be in the next year, 12 months to 36 months? And people are like, we're very bullish, $4, and we're drilling a lot of natural gas wells right now, so that's good timing for us, a good time for our partners.
All right, Jay. Thank you so much. I'm going to talk to some of our other guys, our executive team over here. I'm going to go to Mark. My friend, Mark Ayers. Mark Ayers is our executive geologist, our explorer. There's his treasure maps behind him. Those are his treasure maps, if you guys can see back there. All of his treasure maps. And
Talk about
those lead
digital.
us. They do. They lead us to the black gold. They lead us to the good stuff. So welcome on today, Mark. Good to always see you.
Thank you. I always like doing this.
I always like when you're with us as well. Today we're going to talk a little bit about oil reservoirs and whatever else pops into my head today. So I just want to talk about, let's define some words here because we hear a lot of words in the oil industry. We hear basin, we hear reserves, reservoirs. What are we talking about when we look at an oil reservoir? What does that exactly mean?
Well, that actually has changed, Rachel. And if you'd asked this question maybe 25 years ago, we could think of it as a stack of marbles, and the space between the marbles would be the porosity. And then if the water would drain out of those marbles very quickly, we'd call that permeability. That was what we used to look for. And still internationally and in the offshore, we still do look for that kind of reservoir. But what really has revolutionized the drilling and development in the United States is what we call shale reservoirs. And those are almost the exact opposite of that. These have very low porosity, very low permeability. And that's why we drill these long horizontal wells into them that can be up to 3 miles long now. And what we're doing is we're going into these rocks that used to be what we would just call our source rocks. It was where the oil was cooked and expelled into the pore system. And now we're actually putting wells into those source rocks and producing oil and gas out of those. So when we talk about the shale revolution, that's what we're doing. And a couple of things have helped with that. One is just understanding that that can be a reservoir. The technology that Kelly can talk about on drilling horizontal wells is it's just dramatic. I remember the first horizontal well I drilled was back in 1995. It was a much different world than now. I mean, we drilled like a 2,500-foot horizontal well, and that was a big deal. These days, these guys can drill 3 mile laterals horizontally and not have the challenge that we had then. So that really is what has changed the business dramatically in this country. It's not true in the rest of the world, but in this country, the reservoir now is one that has the most organic matter in it and the most prolific generator of oil and gas in situ in place. So we can come in, drill the horizontals there. Kelly just finished fracking some wells. We put fresh water down the ground. It does have some chemicals, but not a lot, and a lot of sand. And we use that to create our own porosity and permeability to get the oil out of the source rocks. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does. It does. So when we talk about shale, are there different types of shale or it's just shale?
Well,
Everywhere,
that's
every basin has shale.
well, that's a good question because the reality is a lot of things we call shale plays really aren't shales. And a shale usually is a rock that's been comprised of clay minerals and has been deposited and turned into a rock. But these days, when we say the word shale, we're talking about sometimes, for instance, in the Bakken, we've talked about that before. It's actually we land those wells in a carbonate rock, a dolomite, and the source rocks in that case are actually on either side of it. We drill the well in that carbonate rock and then we frack it. So when I first started looking at the Bakken and people said, go check out this shale play, I said, well, it's not even a shale play, but actually it's a resource play. And that's the new mantra. And the same thing's true in the Permian Basin. Those are really siliciclastic sandstones, siltstones, and they're not really shales that we're drilling the wells in. They do have shales around them, but in the old days, when we were looking for porosity with good permeability, we didn't want shales. But shales actually, surprisingly to a lot of people, have high porosity, but it's not effective porosity. So you might have 30 or 40% porosity in a shale rock in between the different clay minerals, but you can't produce anything out of it as a conventional reservoir. These days, we're looking for the source rock, the organic matter, and then we put in a long horizontal, we stimulate them in the most effective way, and then we can drain the hydrocarbons from there. And that's how the United States has reversed its decline in oil production and is leading the world in our daily oil production now. And that's all due to the technology in this business. And so we've actually been, we went over to Abu Dhabi years ago and we're talking to them. They're still in the world that works with conventional reservoirs, but they're starting to get interested in unconventional reservoirs also because they'd like to have natural gas. And so they wanted to learn more about that. I better quit talking now.
Very interesting. Yeah. So let's talk about technology then. I think it was you were on with me and was it Steve? And we talked about technology. We talked about you being like, what was his name from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Cornelius with the ding ding ding.
Keep going, Cornelia.
Yeah, Yukon Cornelius back in the day with the the little hammer, and then you could find the resource, the resources, the hydrocarbons. But that's not how it is right now. What does the technology look like? Can you kind of break it down when you're, especially as you're talking about different types of rock, different types of shale, different, all these different things. What is the technology that you're using? And start it off, with the basics.
Yeah, well, for me, I'll let Kelly talk about the completion and drilling technology because he's the expert on that. But as far as the geologic aspects of it,
Yeah.
three-dimensional seismic is really a very powerful tool because when you're drilling a 3 mile lateral and you're trying to stay in a 50-foot interval over 3 miles, knowing where that interval is really critical. Knowing whether or not you're going to cross a fault and find yourself out of that 3 mile interval, that 30-foot interval is really critical. So these days, almost there's very few wells that are drilled in these resource plays, these horizontal plays, without having great three-dimensional seismic. And how did that come about? Well, it really came about because of the developments in digital technology. Back a long time ago, back when I started in this business in the 80s, we shot seismic lines in long lateral, long straight lines, and we recorded the data, but it was stretching the ability of our digital drives and stuff to record it. Now we can record so much more data. We can process it with really fast processors. And so by having that technology, now we're able to execute on the horizontal drilling much more effectively. So it's sort of interesting how those technologies came together to make us such an efficient industry in this country right now. We'll still have our offshore wells drilled that have great results, but those wells, they cost a lot of money to drill. They're very competitive because usually they're in federal waters and everybody has to go and bid on them competitively to capture the opportunity. And the more likely it is to be a producer, the more expensive it is to buy it. It's sort of interesting. So the riskier, less likely to work, it's cheaper to buy. But these days, 3D data, especially in the offshore, is tremendous. We can actually get things called direct hydrocarbon indicators, where we actually not only see where the rocks are deposited and how they're laid down in like a topographic map, we can actually see signs that there's oil and gas in those rocks. And those are called direct hydrocarbon indicators. Well, if you're trying to get one of those in the Gulf of America, excuse me, you're going to have to, I worked so many years in the other, you're going to have to pay a lot of money because everybody that's got that same data set sees that same characteristic. So it's an interesting world, and it's a very competitive world. A lot of people don't think so. They think that you shoot seismic lines and they say, oh, there's the oil, let's just go drill it. It's never that simple.
So before I move on really quick, so just tell everybody, because I partly why we do this is to help everybody kind of understand our industry. So I like to ask these questions. When you're getting seismic, I mean, is it aerial? What is the machine? Is it in an airplane? What is the actual machine like?
Yeah. Well, seismic specifically is a type of a remote sensing that involves sound waves. We do look at other kinds of things like magnetics and gravity aerially. We can fly an airplane over it. But for seismic, we do it on the ground or in the offshore. We do it on the surface of the water.
Okay.
And so what we do is we literally fire off a noise source of some sort, a signal source, and then we record how long it takes for that signal source to go in the ground and bounce back. And that's the reflectivity. Well, when we see that and we look at that seismic data, we can tell then through that data where the reservoir is going to go down, where there's going to be a fault, and we can then steer our wells. And thanks to guys like Kelly, we can do it very effectively. We can stay in that 40-foot window that we want to be in over a long, long distance. But that's what the seismic is. It's changed over the years, but it's still the same basic thing. We're looking for reflections, or if you want, let's just think of echoes. If you yell real loud and you get an echo in a canyon, you could time the length of time it took for that echo to come back to you. You'd know how far away it is based on the velocity of sound. Well, we're doing the same thing in the ground. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what I want.
Well, one little thing, we have different types of sound sources. When we work in the offshore, we use something called an air gun. and that is simply compressed air that we build up, and then it fires off a loud boom, and that's the source of sound. It's not, we very rarely use seismic in the offshore. I mean, dynamite in the offshore. Now, some places, people used to drill wells, put dynamite down in the ground in a hole, and use that as your signal source. But almost exclusively now, we're using surface vibrators, they're called. They're huge trucks that have a big pad on it, and they go out. There's a whole line of them running across your field, and they put down a big pad, and they just literally vibrate the
Wow.
ground. And
Yeah.
that's called vibrasize, and that's what most of our source for signal is right now. So is that enough, Rachel? I could talk all day about it, but I think Kelly should talk some too.
I know we're stealing time from Kelly, but Kelly, don't worry, we're
Okay.
gonna get to you. I know that Kelly likes the version of being able to put dynamite in the hole. I could see he just got super excited with the idea. He's like, yes, that's my favorite version. Kelly, have you ever done that?
I have blown some stuff up in the oil field, yes. The old school, we used to drop nitroglycerin down the hole. But yeah,
I knew it. As soon as I heard that, I was like, I know Kelly's been out there with the dynamite. So,
I
Kelly,
like
maybe
that color, yeah.
what I would want to do is just kind of match together the rhythm of how you work with geology. So, Mark is giving you all this information. He's bringing you all this seismic. And then how do you work together on putting that together into a plan? You actually go out. You're our guy that's out there, 24 hours sometimes putting the wells into where Mark is telling you. How do you do that?
Your timing is impeccable because Mark and I are literally doing that today. So we were together about 2 hours this morning. We're planning our next two wells. Green, this yellow wells here we just drilled are these two. And we're moving to these two. And Mark and I literally, we got it busted up our meeting to come get ready for this podcast today. But literally, him and I were taking the geological data that he had. Our land team, our landmen have figured out the XYs. So coordinates work at X, Y, Z, right? X is lateral. I'm sorry, longitude. Y is latitude, and Z is depth. So Mark and I, our land department figures out the X, Y. Mark and I take that, and we were going to Z. Literally, I have on a piece of paper written right here. Mark gave me 20 minutes ago, 9,400 feet. So I'm building a plan. So I'm working up the cost estimates on our next two wells. We'll drill in December. I now know where we're starting, where we're finishing, but Mark had to tell me where I'm going. So he gave me a magic number, 9,400 feet, so below the earth. So I am literally taking that data that has taken him and his team months to calculate based on offset data, logs, seismic, all that stuff, and I will send it to my directional company, my technical team, and myself, and we'll do the trigonometry, and we will calculate how much footage we have to drill to get what we want. So that's literally what I'm working on now, so that I can build what AFE we call an authorization for expenditure. So I'll build the cost estimate so we can share with ourselves and our partners and know how much it's going to cost us and how to plan the well, different measurements. So we work hand in hand, finger in finger, day in, day out to do that information.
Yeah, you guys do an amazing job over there. I mean, it's really amazing to watch you guys and to see how good of a flow you have. So just tell us a little bit then, as far as cost goes, we talk about, you just mentioned putting estimates together and all of that. Talk about what's driving the cost to drill a well right now. What are we looking at economically?
Strangely enough, as Jay always says, supply drives demand or demand drives supply, and cost is a factor of that. If you follow any person in the oil field, one of their favorite things to post is the baker or the neighbor's rig count cost. The rig count is a big measurement. It doesn't have any true meaning, but it does at the same time. It's the supply demand and activity level, rig count level, frac crew level. Those really drive a lot of our numbers, especially drilling contractors. Plain and simple. If you're at 90% utilization and you want to use that last 10%, it's expensive. If you're at 50% utilization and every vendor out there is looking to get their rigs going, then it's a much more competitive market. And unfortunately, fortunately for us as an operator, unfortunately as the industry as a whole, we're definitely in a valley right now with prices around $60. Availability is high. Crews are active and hungry. I'm getting bids in at some of the lowest I've seen in years. So
Wow.
despite the inflation, we just finished a frac job. I think I mentioned on one of our previous podcasts. It's in the ground. It's done. I can brag on it now. Went really smooth, really great, under budget, under time, all those great things. But plain and simply, at the same time, the base cost from the bid process from everybody was definitely down. So the market environment with rig count being down and low, pre-COVID, let's go back to like 2012, costs were an all-time high, right? We were at maximum rig utilization, and so the cost, even though the cost of oil was high, the cost to get oil out of the ground was high too. So although the cost of oil is lower right now, but the cost of services and materials have gone down as well. The one caveat to that is frac jobs are cheap, contractors for drilling are cheap. Those are primarily services. Some of your consumables, some of your tangibles ride a different way. The biggest of that is OCTG, Oilfield Country Tubular Guide. So that is our pipe. And every well in the oil field worldwide has one thing in common. It all has casing in the hull. And all wells need casing, and all casing we use is highly engineered and designed and specs and comes from all over the world. Some here in Pittsburgh, India, China, Ukraine. In pipe comes from all over the world by steel makers. My favorite, of course, U.S. Steel. But that rides a slightly separate market. For a long time, it was tied very close to oil field. But as we've gone international with our casing and oil country tubulars acquisition, tariffs and world markets have changed that as well. And the turmoil in Russia and Ukraine has affected that a lot. Our inflection on tariffs. So the one thing that's gone up on me over the last year or so is tubulars. Now they're not being used as much, so there's a balance of usage and inventory versus tariff costs, but casing has not come down as much as, say, locally domestic sand, water, wireline companies, things like that. But so tariffs and international markets do affect the tubular side and the tangible side of the oil and gas well.
Yeah, very, very interesting to see that kind of dynamic with the price costs in different areas. So, but yes,
Rachel,
Kelly, you get to brag on yourself.
Yeah,
Jay?
Yeah, and Rachel, I wanted to say something real quick. It was just that I don't think people realize how many different people there are it takes to drill a well. I mean, if you've seen a house being built, there is, I don't know how many different people, 100, 200 different people. I mean, you have a roofer, you have electricity, you have cabinets, you have all these different things. It's the same thing to drill an oil and gas well. I don't know how many line items or how many different vendors or how many different people that you use. Kelly, how many different people do you use on a well?
So, in the course of safety and all that stuff, we had on this frac job we just had, I had 21 vendors per day on average on location. And and some of those vendors didn't even have people out there on a regular basis. But my roll call sheet, I did every 12 hours, average 61 people, Jay.
Wow.
So 20 companies with an average, and that doesn't balance out. A lot of those companies had one or none. Yeah. And our frac company, they had 27 people. But, myself included, we were broke 60 people on location per 12-hour shift. So really, in the course of the day, 120 different people. And that doesn't even count the truck drivers that were coming and going. That was another 100 people. But so they didn't inventory checking because they don't get out of the truck. So there was close to 150 people on a location per day.
Yeah. A tremendous amount of different people that we have to drill one oil and gas well. It'll take over 100 different vendors, 100 different people doing something different. And I'm always talking to Kelly, and Kelly's very good about getting 3 different bids, from different people and just talking to different people about it. Don't take the first person that comes along because it may be, you have your 5 different items, your rig cost. But if there's rigs sitting if Patterson has 3 or 4 rigs sitting in the yard not being used and Neighbors doesn't, Patterson's going to go, hey, come on over here. We got a rig that you can use for $15,000 a day. And Neighbors is like, well, you can have one of our rigs and it's on rotation. It'll be $18,000 a day, $20,000 a day. Not even sure when you can get it, but we have one. So it's all about supply and demand, not only on on the oil and gas prices, but it's also about those vendors and how much it costs. So that's what Kelly's very good at, hammering people about cost, and it's about the taxes that you pay, transportation that it takes to get out there. And Kelly's very good at that, and I applaud him for that. So that's
Kelly's out there hammering them.
There you go.
That's right. Getting us the best deal.
Hey, the dude's 6'4", 6'5", 250, man. I don't want to mess with him.
I'm a big ugly guy. Yes, I am the I am the
muscle.
Exactly.
You're out there, Kelly. We love it. You work hard for us. Well, you guys, we are out of time today, but as always, to everybody out there, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, send us your questions. Reach out to us on any of our social media platforms or on our website, kingoperating.com. Make sure to check out Jay's book, The Upside of Oil and Gas Investing. Definitely something that you want to read to find out more about us, find out more about the oil and gas industry and our legacy here at King. We would love for this to be in your hand. And yeah, we're just thankful that you joined us. Gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today and having some fun with me and educating everybody out there on our wonderful industry of oil and gas. So you guys make sure to be back here same time next Wednesday. We would love for you to be here. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rachel.